Well, welcome to Smells Like Smoke. My name is Trevor DeVage. I'm your host for this podcast where we talk about what's it look like to rescue people from hell to hope. How do we snatch them from the flames of judgment? And I want to welcome you back. I know this episode is going a little later in the day if you're hearing it. Let me tell you why. The last literally week of my life, my dad went into the hospital last Tuesday, and it has been very touch and go for a few days with him. In fact, if you've been following along on social media, I literally thought I was going to be planning my dad's funeral this time last week. And yet, here we are today. Last night, I just took him home, and he's back at his house doing very, very well. And so all of you that have prayed through this journey, all of you that have prayed through that season with us, thank you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go back on my social media, take a look at Trevor DeVage, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever you want to go. But today, we are in episode 2 of season 2 of Smells Like Smoke. And let me start with something that might feel kind of heavy. Sometimes waiting is the most dangerous thing you and I can do. Not always, not recklessly, but sometimes. See, there are moments when patience stops being wisdom and starts being avoidance. Moments when silence is not loving. Moments when delay actually costs people's lives. So today we're talking about snatching people from the fire, not panicking, not pressuring, not performing, but acting with urgency. So when the moment demands it, we're ready. Because urgency saves lives. So why does this matter? Well, this matters because many people confuse urgency with aggression, especially men. They're afraid of being pushy. They're afraid of being seen as awkward or crossing a line. So what do? We wait. We wait for the perfect moment. We wait for clarity. We wait for permission. And sometimes that wait costs more than we realize. See, rescue does not always come with a warning. Sometimes it comes with a window. Let me say that again. Rescue doesn't always come with a warning, but sometimes it comes with a window, and windows can close. So let's talk about this thing like a holy urgency versus panic. Let's define urgency first, because urgency is not panic. Urgency is clarity. Panic rushes without discernment. Urgency moves with purpose. You assess. Panic reacts. Urgency responds. Panic is driven by fear. Urgency is driven by love. So when you love someone, you act, not recklessly, but decisively. So I think about some stories that I know of intervention. These moments where intervention has mattered the most, a conversation that interrupted a destructive pattern, or a phone call that stopped someone from making a devastating choice, or a presence that shifted the trajectory in someone's life. See, those moments, maybe they weren't comfortable, maybe they weren't perfectly timed, but they were necessary. And lives changed because someone acted instead of waiting is the goal. So when does waiting become dangerous? Well, waiting becomes dangerous when you see a warning sign and you ignore it, or you sense urgency and you suppress it, or you choose comfort over courage. That's when it gets dangerous. Now, some situations don't need more time. What they need is more truth. So when addiction is escalating, or when despair is deepening, or isolation is growing, delay is not neutral. I've sat with countless men in our city who have said some version of this phrase: I wish someone would have said something sooner. They weren't angry, they were grieving. Because no one wanted to be awkward, no one wanted to push, no one wanted to cross a line in their life. And here's what happened: the fire spread. So a good rule of thumb is urgency is love expressed in time. Urgency is love expressed in time. If you look at Jesus' life, Jesus knew when to wait and he knew when to act. He lingered in conversations. He slowed for the hurting, but he also confronted decisively. He called people out of dangerous paths. He spoke truth at critical moments. Jesus did not avoid urgency. He actually discerned it. That's our model. I have people all the time that come in my office and they'll ask this question or they'll say this phrase, hey, I need you to be honest with me. Now, I have a choice in that moment. Am I going to be honest or am I going to make them feel good? And I usually ask them this question, do you really want me to be honest with you? And they say yes. And I'll ask it again. I'm like, are you sure? Because I'm about to be honest with you and I'm not sure you're ready, even though it's urgent. And they always say, yeah, I am. And I always say, I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you want me to tell you the truth or do you want me to make you feel good? They always say the truth. And then when you give them the truth, that's usually out of urgency, they go, wow, you really told the truth. So what stops, especially men, from acting with urgency? I think as men, men hesitate because of a couple things. One, the fear of rejection. They fear being misunderstood. They fear being wrong. And those fears, they're all real. But fear cannot be the deciding factor when lives are at stake. Because rescue requires courage. And courage often feels like risk. It feels risky. So how do you recognize urgent moments? How do you know when to act boldly? Here are a few indicators that I think you can look at. First of all, when patterns escalate, I think you can start to act boldly. When language starts to turn hopeless in someone's life, I think that's an urgent moment. When behavior becomes reckless in somebody's life, I think there's an urgency that has to happen. Or when you see somebody's isolation start to increase. Those are all signals, not guarantees, signals. Wisdom listens to signals. Wisdom pays attention to what's going on. So how do you act without manipulating? Because urgency does not mean coercion. You don't manipulate, you don't threaten, you don't pressure, but you speak clearly. You show concern. You stay present. Bold action can still be compassionate. And here's the goal. The goal is not control. The goal is rescue. Helping people find hope. So let me get really practical with you to know when to act boldly. Let's step into the practicality. Here's a simple framework. The first thing we do when we're on a rescue mission to snatch people from hell to hope is name what you see. So when you talk to them, say, man, I'm concerned because I see this pattern. Help me understand the pattern. So you got to name what you see. The second thing, express care. Don't just name what you see, but then say something like, this matters to me because you matter to me. The phrase we use at our church, Pantano, where I'm the pastor, is we love you enough to let you come as you are, but man, we love you way too much to leave you there. The third framework you can do is speak truth clearly. I think I would say something like, this path leads somewhere dangerous if we stay on this path. And then the fourth thing, offer your presence. I'm not leaving you in this. I'm here with you. You're not doing this alone. And then I think the last thing you could do is invite a response. What do you want to do next? Ask that question. Like, what do you want to do next in this moment? Because I'm trying to help you get rescue. See, urgency with dignity builds trust. Let me say that again. Urgency with dignity builds trust. When you have an urgency for somebody and you treat them with dignity, they begin to trust you in that moment. Now, some of you are like, yeah, but what if I'm wrong? What if I act and I'm wrong? Here's the truth. You can apologize for acting too soon. You can't undo damage caused by acting too late. I'm going to repeat that. You can apologize for acting too soon. You can't undo damage caused by acting too late. Silence feels safer, but safety is not always love. Here's the cost if we do nothing. Let me say this as plainly as I can. Inaction has a cost. We just rarely see it immediately. We notice the cost of action, the awkwardness, the tension, but the cost of inaction compounds quietly. Urgency interrupts that trajectory. So men, this is where courage shows up. Not in speeches, not in posts, in moments. Moments where you step in, where you say the hard thing, where you refuse to look away. That's leadership. That's rescue at its very finest. So what does this mean for the commissioning of us? For the commission to go rescue people from hell? See, going close enough to smell like smoke means recognizing when the fire is spreading. It means stepping towards danger with wisdom. It means risking comfort for someone else's life. That's the call. So here's the hope. The hope is that God works with ordinary acts of courage. A conversation, a presence, a moment of clarity. You don't have to save anyone. That's not your job. That's God's work. But you do have to be willing to act when love demands it. So I want to give you a challenge. Here's your challenge this week. Pay attention. Notice where urgency is rising in the lives of others. Notice where you feel a nudge. Notice where waiting might be avoidance. And then I want you to do something. Act. Not loudly, not recklessly, boldly. Because urgency saves lives. Here at Pantano, we are actually in a series right now called Smells Like Smoke. And we're actually urging everybody in this series to be urgent for one person in their life that desperately needs to be snatched from hell to hope. Can I challenge you? If you live in the Tucson area, join us here at Pantano. Come and hang out with us for this series. Don't miss a week. If you've already missed a week of it, get back on board this week. And then we're inviting our ones. You're like, what's a one? One person far from God that needs hope, that needs rescue. So that means you need to go smell like smoke this week. And then another thing I'm going to ask you to do as well. Would you share this podcast? If you like it, if it brings value to your life and you think it would bring value to someone else, would you share this? Put it out there, like it, review it, help us get the word out. I've also told you my new book, Smells Like Smoke, is actually coming out. Pre-sale starts this month. I told you this audience right here, you will be the first to get the pre-sale code for that when it comes out. I would be humbled and honored if you would buy a copy and maybe even gift a copy to someone else. You'll be getting a link for that. They'll be in the show notes in a couple weeks. You'll be able to get that. I will definitely tell you when that launches, but this is Smells Like Smoke. And we are learning to move when it matters, to speak when it counts, to rescue when the fire is close. Next episode, we're going to talk about living on mission without becoming a jerk and how urgency and humility can coexist. So do me a favor, stay alert, stay courageous, and stay close to the fire. We'll see you next week.